What's up, YouTube? Welcome to ExceedTheHype.com. It's your boy Lucrecio coming at you with another video. Alright, today's video is entitled Can the Knicks return or become relevant in the NBA right now? So, as we all know, the Knicks really are kind of an afterthought in the NBA right now. Not a whole, basically they make news, but for all the wrong reasons. All the news last year was about Phil Jackson. Or if it wasn't about Phil Jackson, it was about their treatment of Charles Oakley. But basically, or Phil Jackson's treatment of Carmelo Anthony. But basically, it was all bad news. But I'm here to tell you that everything is not all bad with the New York Knicks. First of all, let's start off at the top. They have new leadership. Well, it's still Steve Mills or whatever, but now I guess he's in an empowered state now. So they have that. But even forgetting about that for a second, there's Jeff Hornacek. Jeff Hornacek has had some success in the NBA at the coaching. He was the coach of the Phoenix Suns. It was one season he was coaching the Phoenix Suns, obviously in the Western Conference, and they were fighting it out for the 8th spot. Now they ended up missing the 8th spot to a better team, but still, it just goes to show you how competitive that team ended up being with Jeff Hornacek coaching. They played an up-tempo style of basketball, and they were pretty successful. So there's that as well. Let's talk about what they're dealing with here. They have their best player is obviously Kristaps Porzingis, who was like definitely a special player, especially in today's NBA. He's basically like their power forward. I don't think they really want to play him at center at this point. But I mean, who's to say what can happen in the future? I don't even know really what to compare this guy to. He's 7'3". I wanted to say Dirk for the longest time, but he really isn't that similar to Dirk. Other than the fact that he can shoot or whatever, that they both can shoot, but he really isn't all that similar to Dirk. So he's just a special player and a special guy to be able to build your team around. So you have that working in your favor if you are the New York Knicks. So let's go to their draft pick this year, Frank N from France. What they're going to need, I think the key to Porzingis will be that they really need, that he just needs to develop his game, develop or keep growing into himself is what I really want to say. Shout out to Portland, Dame Lillard. Yeah, they really need to trade Joakim Noah. That's going to be a big deal for them to get out from under that contract. I think he just basically needs to finish growing into his body if he's not fully growing into his body, and just keep fine-tuning your game. I don't really know what to say Porzingis needs to improve because I think he has the whole package, to be honest. I think Porzingis is absolutely an awesome basketball player. Frank N, what the Knicks are going to need from him, because I don't know how to say his last name correctly, so I'm not going to try. They really need for him to develop, and they need for him to be good right away. He doesn't have to be an elite point guard. He doesn't have to be an all-star point guard or anything like that. He just needs to be good. He needs to be solid, right? They don't have time to wait 3 years for him to develop or whatever. He can't come in raw and have to figure everything out. They need him to be they need him to be good, average to a little bit above average right out the back. Honestly, with Frank, I don't know exactly what he's going to bring. I don't know what kind of quality of a shooter he is, so it's just going to be, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him though, because they could have got Dennis Smith Jr. They could have got Malik Monk. Both these players were like really good college players and high-profile prospects or whatever, and the Knicks went out and got somebody from France who nobody had ever really heard of. So that's going to be pressure on him to perform, but I'm sure, hopefully, he'll be up to the challenge. So, but if he does end up being a good player, that's going to be their two cornerstones basically. So that's going to definitely be positive. Let's talk about their free agent signing. The restricted free agent Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway Jr. I think is a good player, a good shooter. I've seen mostly his outside shooting, his like kind of clutch play or whatever. He kind of has like that motor or whatever. He's shown the ability to defend his position. He's shown, and now he's starting to show the ability, as far as last season is concerned, to kind of put the ball on the floor a little bit more and attack the rim when the opportunity comes. So I like him as with Atlanta, and I think with this team, he's going to be their starting two guard. I'll get more into that later. Money they paid him was probably a little ridiculous, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. If that's the guy they wanted, and they wanted to pay him that because they weren't really bidding against anybody, so that's what they wanted to pay him. So it's all good with that. Courtney Lee, this is the person I really want to talk about a lot in this video, because I don't see him sticking with the team. I think Courtney Lee is one of their pieces that they have, one of their very tradable pieces, and I would imagine he has a lot of value around the league, especially when you look at the top of the Western Conference. How much would Courtney Lee help the OKC Thunder? Because remember, the OKC are going to be dependent on a rookie for their starting two position, or if they don't start him, they're still going to be looking to him to see if they can get a lot of minutes from him. So how valuable would somebody like Courtney Lee be to the OKC Thunder? How valuable would he be to the Spurs? Somebody who could possibly start in place of Danny Green, or come off the bench, because they both bring the same type of game. Both are really good perimeter defenders. Both are good 3-point shooters. So it's however they really wanted to mix it up. I think Courtney Lee is a little bit better when it comes to like being able to attack off the dribble if necessary. But he'd help that team out with the wing depth. He'd help Minnesota out with wing depth. He would be a very valuable piece. Even the Clippers. Think about the Clippers are missing a starting two guard right now. So think about even the Clippers. If he went to the Clippers, that would be a big deal. He'd help them out a lot. So Courtney Lee is somebody I definitely see being traded to the Western Conference. He could just help out so many teams in the West, and they could get back a draft pick or whatever the case may be, or a young prospect type player for him that they can develop along with Frank and Porzingis. Let's talk about Carmelo Anthony for a second. Carmelo Anthony, it will not be there, obviously. He's going to be out the door. The question is, what kind of value are the Knicks going to get for Carmelo Anthony? There's been talk about him being involved in the Kyrie Irving trade. He said that he only wants to go to two teams, so it's basically a waiting game. He wants to go to the Houston Rockets or LeBron James. Either way, basically an elite point guard-ish type situation where you have somebody who could really, a real leader of the team, and then you could just make Carmelo like an elite weapon. That's ultimately will be him at his best. So either way they go with that, it'll be fine. I think for the Knicks' sake, if they were able to get somebody like Tristan Thompson back for Carmelo Anthony, I think that would definitely be a huge deal. I think Tristan Thompson is more or less one of the untouchables on Cleveland, as he should be. But I'm just saying, if they were able to get somebody like that, I think Tristan Thompson would be another player who would go really good with Porzingis. Not that Tristan Thompson would be the only piece traded for Carmelo, but with Tristan Thompson involved with any kind of trade for Carmelo, that would be definitely a big deal. Let's see. You have people like Ron Baker, who we took a look at last year. They re-signed him to a pretty big contract. They obviously like what he brings to the table. I'm assuming they really want him as a backup point guard. That's what the vision is for Ron Baker. Considering that they just drafted a point guard. Damian Dotson, not very familiar. Willie. He had definitely some good moments and some good games and things of that nature. He's just going to be somebody else who also needs to, develop his game. And that's ultimately what the Knicks need to go after, because that's another reason they need to trade Carmelo and Courtney Lee. Carmelo is somebody who can shift the balance of power, especially if he's traded to one of these teams that are already like really good. If he's traded to the Cavaliers, I think that would tip the championship in their favor. if he's traded to Houston, I think Houston will give Golden State a good run in the Western Conference Finals. I still don't know that they beat Golden State with Chris Paul, James Harden, and Carmelo, but they definitely give them a good run. It'll be definitely fun to watch. But either way, it just goes to show you how monumental of a piece Carmelo is. But once they will trade him for sure, and then I think Courtney Lee will be out the door too. So let's go on to Joakim Noah. Now, this is where it gets a little hairy for the New York Knicks. Phil Jackson, as one last act of defiance with the Knicks, signed him to, like, I think it was a 4-year deal or something like that. The money is not what I'm mad at. Okay, if you want to sign somebody for 18 mil for one season or something ridiculous like that, go ahead, it's fine. If you have the space to waste, more power to you. But when you start signing like an old guy, like shout out to Alfred, what's up, Alfredo, sorry about that. When you sign an old guy like Joakim Noah, who could possibly be done, and unless you have a deal with him that he'll retire if he really can't play. But if he really stays on this team to the end of that contract, he's going to be quite a barrier for this team. So, and honestly, I can't imagine who would trade for that contract. The best the Knicks can hope for is that the rehab goes really, 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 really well with Joakim Noah, and he can bounce back from the injury and become a key contributor for this team. To me, that's like the best case scenario, because if it's not that, I really don't know how that's going to work out for Joakim and for the Knicks, because he makes a lot of money, and for that production, that's going to be real tough. And you can't trade him. That's the thing. There's no market out there to try to trade him to get rid of that contract. So that's going to be tough. I don't know what Phil Jackson and what that front office was doing with that. Once again, if you want to pay him 18 mil for 1 year or something like that, or a 2-year contract with the team option on the second year, I'm with you. I mean, it's still too much money, but if you want to pay him that, then more power to you. But you can't go long contracts with older players like that where the production isn't there. You're just asking for trouble. So they have to find a way out of that, or hope he retires. I believe if you retire, I don't think the team is still responsible for that salary, or maybe they are. But even if they are, I think they can then stretch the remaining portion of the salary over 5 years. So either way, if he was to retire or whatever the case may be, maybe that would be their way out, or to get some kind of relief. But that's tough. Okay, shout out to Brian Gutierrez. Yeah, I'm talking about whatever. The Knicks are just kind of the main subject, but it's all good. When was Noah's downfall? Shout out to Sincere Washington. Yeah, I will be talking about the NFL soon. I got a checklist of basketball videos I have to knock out, and then we'll start getting into the NFL as well. I think Noah went downhill a couple years ago. To me, really, his last season in Chicago wasn't, when the injury started. I don't feel like he ever really recovered from the injury, because Noah was a player who was, his effectiveness was based on activity, right? Is he the quickest one to the ball, getting rebounds, hustle points, beating his man up the floor, running the floor, getting easy buckets and stuff like that. Noah was never like a post-up type guy or whatever who was really super skilled at scoring or anything like that. So when his ability to, beat other centers down court and to beat other centers to the ball and get offensive rebounds, get a lot of rebounds, get blocks and stuff, when that athleticism started slipping away, I think that was Noah's game. I don't know that he could have recovered from that. Now, if he can get really, really healthy, and if he still has some of that athleticism left, I still think he could be serviceable. But even as a serviceable big man, I think that's crazy that they paid him that amount of money. Sac Kings, Dark Horse, or I could see Sacramento surprising a couple people. I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year, but I think within the next 3 years you'll see a complete change in that organization. I absolutely think they're going to get a lot better pretty soon. Let's see. In the fifth, the next 2 seasons. I personally believe that that the Kings will. I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't know how many wins I project them to have. I just think you will see a lot of improvement. I think we'll see steady improvement over the next 3 seasons for the Kings. So, like, real quick, so I can wrap up this little Knicks video real quick. Ultimately, the future could be bright for the Knicks. Let me talk about Kyle O'Quinn real quick. I think Kyle O'Quinn is another player. They could either keep him, and he could be a building block, because he's a big bruiser type power forward center who can get a lot of rebounds and who's just a tough guy out on the court. I think he's a useful player to have. They can keep him or let him go. He's young, so I don't see the fault in keeping him, even if you have a bad team, because he can grow with the rest of those guys. But I totally see him being another piece that you can have on that team who will be a valuable role player for the foreseeable future. But ultimately, the thing that I believe the Knicks need to really do is get rid of the players that are valuable trade pieces. Carmelo, you have to go. You got to get picks back. You got to get young players back. Young players and picks for Carmelo is the best case scenario, unless there's a Tristan Thompson out there that you can get who would be a perfect complementary piece to Porzingis and whatever else. But ultimately, if you can't get a perfect complementary piece, then you really are trying to get picks or whatever and young players so that you can continue to build. I think not drafting Dennis Smith was a big mistake, but ultimately they can come back from that. It's a new regime, so they should be fine. And Courtney Lee definitely has to go. Not that there's anything wrong with Courtney, really good or whatever at perimeter defense and shooting threes and stuff like that, but he's just too valuable to keep him on that team. OKC, I'm pretty sure OKC will give you something real nice for Courtney Lee, because he'd fit real nice next to Russell Westbrook. But anyway, as far as the Knicks, that's my video about the Knicks, and we're going to kind of slide right into the Hoops Lounge and start kind of talking basketball or whatever based on the chat. So let's go back to what I missed here. Okay. Can I see Golden State slipping soon? Man. Okay, I'm conflicted when it comes to Golden State. I personally think there's a recipe out there. There's 2 recipes, in my opinion, that you can beat Golden State with. And I also made a video about this. I think if you have a lot of wing players who are good at defense, I think you could beat Golden State, not by trying to outscore them, by stopping them, because they do most of their damage off the off-ball action. So with all that action that they run off the ball, they get people turned around and people lose their assignments. And typically, I don't think defensively players really are used to defending, to have to think that much on defense when you're not guarding the ball or whatever. Golden State makes you think a lot, makes you have to keep track of every single person on the floor, and I think that's tough. And I think until the team is just that disciplined that they're like, okay, we're going to switch everything, we're going to yell out every screen, we're going to execute our defensive strategy perfectly, I think it's going to be hard for any team to beat Golden State. Unless you also have a team, if Carmelo Anthony, and that's why I keep saying, when I make videos about Carmelo Anthony shifting the balance in the NBA or whatever, everybody thinks I'm crazy. It's like, oh, Carmelo isn't that good. Carmelo is that good. If he goes to the Houston Rockets, I give the Rockets probably it's still a pretty small chance, but I give them a chance, because on top of, or other than defending, having like basically 4 wings on the floor playing together to be able to switch everything for Golden State, if you can't do that, I think the other way is trying to outscore them. And most teams cannot outscore Golden State, but I think the Rockets with D'Antoni's offense, because The offense Steve Kerr does is just kind of taking D'Antoni's old Phoenix offense to the next level, in my opinion. But I think D'Antoni is a guy who could coach a team as long as it's talented enough to beat Golden State. And that's why I also have to look at Minnesota, because Minnesota without Jimmy Butler has given Golden State trouble the last couple of years. And that's even before they even got Jimmy Butler, who's like one of the top shooting guards or small forward, whatever you want to classify him as in the NBA. They gave him trouble anyway. Number one, you got Karl Anthony Towns, who's a great athlete. So even though he's almost 7 feet, he can kind of stick with guards for a couple seconds. And then you have Andrew Wiggins, who's like really long. He's 6'8", and he's really long arms. So it's tough for anybody to be able to beat him off the dribble, even though he's still not even a good defender, because I don't think the effort's there on defense. But even without that, just because of his physical abilities, I think he's tough. He gives Golden State problems. They also had Shabazz Muhammad, who I don't know if they're going to resign, who is another 6'6" guy who could play defense. So I think Minnesota is kind of a dark horse not really a dark horse. I don't think they're that underrated. If they get the 4th seed, I think they would give Golden State a lot of trouble in the second round if they were to meet them in the second round. A whole lot of trouble. Like I would give them a chance to possibly upset them, and that's without a Kyrie Irving or whatever kind of trade that's being talked about right now. So to answer your question, Brian, I don't see him necessarily. I don't see Golden State slipping, but I do see teams climbing up there to knock them off, and I don't think it's impossible. I think a team can be created that can knock those guys off. Let's see, Quinn is a nice player. Yeah, I like Kyle Quinn as well. I think he's a good type of player to have on your team. Let's see. I used to be a Golden State before all the hype. Now I don't really like, and it's funny because that's really how it goes. Steph Curry, before he really got hot 3 years ago or whatever, I used to absolutely love Steph Curry's game. Now Steph Curry kind of irritates me or whatever. But I absolutely used to love Steph Curry's game, and that's before anybody used to talk about him. I still remember he had a game where he had 55 against New York, and he like lit New York up. And this is when Mark Jackson was still the coach or whatever. And nobody would talk about it. Like they would mention it on ESPN for like 2 seconds, and then they'll go on to whatever other nonsense that they go on with or whatever. And yeah, I just thought it was funny because he got no time even after scoring 55 in the Garden on New York. But now, like if he sneezes, he's on ESPN around the clock on every single show or whatever. So it's just funny. But I feel the same way. I didn't so much love Golden State all that much, but I really used to love Steph Curry's game. And now he just irritates me. I just feel like he's overhyped to the point where it's just like, all right, I heard too much about Steph. But yeah, I feel you on that, Alfredo. Generation of the NBA is soft in my opinion. So a lot of people say that. I don't know. I guess a lot of people would rather see like the Knicks from the old days with Anthony Mason and the fights and the dirty plays and stuff. I don't really know. I don't know what to say about that, because I think the NBA is probably more skilled now. I think it's more complicated. I think the way teams play offense in most cases is a lot more complicated than it used to be. I think the way teams play defense is a lot more complicated than it used to be. I think the athletes are far beyond what they like. Okay, I'll take one example. People say LeBron wouldn't have lasted in the 80s and 90s or whatever. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. LeBron would have been bowing through people, breaking people's bones, going to the basket, because then like people like Michael Jordan and other elites, because the elite players will be able to transfer from any channel. All the players who weren't necessarily elite players, could you imagine one of those old guys from the 80s taking the charge from LeBron James? He caved their chest in. Let's see, let's go on to the next one. Let's see. I was in the building with LeBron when he was with the Heat and hit the game winner against Golden State. You're talking about the situation where it was before the All-Star game, I'm assuming, where he hit the game winner over Andre Iguodala. Let's see. That was that's one of my favorite LeBron game winners. Let's see. What's left in the East to make the All-Star? Okay. Oh, who's left in the East? The Eastern Conference is going to be interesting this year. So naturally you're gonna have the Cavs, and this is a difference. I'm gonna say this, but that might be controversial. So since LeBron James been back with the Cavs, they've been winning like 50 games here, 54 games here, or whatever the case may be. I can guarantee you next year after they trade Kyrie Irving, not that I'm saying anything bad about Kyrie Irving, I love Kyrie Irving or whatever, but after they trade Kyrie Irving, I guarantee you they win like 62 games next year. As long as they get like a good trade package, especially if it's the package from Phoenix, if it's like Eric Bledsoe and Josh Jackson, or Eric Bledsoe, Devin Booker, Eric Bledsoe and somebody. Hopefully it's Josh Jackson though. They're winning 60 games. They're winning over 60 games next season because the team would really be built around LeBron now, and you wouldn't have that outlier and some of the inefficient plays from Kyrie and some of the so much of the ISO and stuff. The offense will flow a little bit easier, and I just think it'll be a better fit. And I think they'll win more games because I've seen watching LeBron James win 50 games in a season is like ridiculous to me because I've seen him win 66 games with Mo Williams and that's it. Like I've seen him, Mo Williams and Delonte West and freaking Ilgauskas, teams that don't have the talent, but somehow he still wins 60 games easily. So I think it's just some of that team chemistry and some of that cohesion or whatever that wasn't there, that hasn't been there with the Cavs. And it's because LeBron and Kyrie, they don't exactly mix or whatever. They never really exactly mix. But because Kyrie is so talented offensively and he has a special talent to score the basketball and to, score on individually versus any defender and stuff like that, you kind of push that aside. It's like, okay, we got to make it work because this guy's so talented. But with Kyrie out the picture, if he goes like to Phoenix or something like that, you'll see the Cavs will get better. Now, would they be able to beat Golden State? I don't know. It just depends on who they get. It depends on the strategy that they decide to use or whatever. But I absolutely think that they'll win more games. Let's see. I don't even know. Was that even the question? I think I just went off on a tirade. Oh, yeah, okay. So what's left in the East to make the All-Star game, the All-Star team now? Antetokounmpo is a big deal. I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Bledsoe, if he's part of that Kyrie trade, I'm pretty sure he'll be All-Star next year. Let's see, Jimmy Butler's gone. I gotta think about who's gonna come up. I don't know. It's basically gonna free up a lot of spaces because Paul Millsap's gone, Paul George is gone. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one, man. That's gonna be a tough one. Next year we might see some All-Stars, some one-timers because they just have to fill the spots. Let's see. Who has the real trust the process team this year? Let's see. So trust the process. First of all, I think Philadelphia will make the playoffs next year. Now they could. Okay, that's another thing. Whoever stands out in Philadelphia next year is going to be an All-Star as well. Philadelphia is going to be really tough. I think if they can stay healthy or something similar to healthy this year, they're going to be pretty tough. Not tough enough to win or do any real damage, but they'll make the playoffs. I think we'll see the Lakers start to come back pretty soon. Now, I know that may sound weird or whatever because the Lakers haven't, been good in a while, but I think Lonzo Ball, even though I'm not a huge Lonzo Ball guy or whatever, I think he's going to make a big difference because one thing that happens when you put a point guard on a team is that it puts everybody back in their right places. That's something D'Angelo Russell couldn't do because to me, D'Angelo Russell was like Evan Turner 2.0. I don't think the whole thing about D'Angelo Russell, they always said that he's like a super true point guard and he like sees plays before. I never saw how he was advertised. So I think when they push Lonzo Ball in that position, I think he really is a true point guard. He really is somebody. And that's the thing. He'll be good because he can shoot the three. Even though he didn't shoot the three that good in the summer league, 3-point shooter in the NBA ultimately. But that being the case, the fact that he wants to pass, and then when the ball kicks back to him, he'll be able to knock down threes. It shakes everything. It puts everything in its place. They got Contavious Pope, and he's really. I always thought he was a really good two-way player. So they have him. They also have Jordan Clarkson off the bench. I don't know. I'm still not a big believer in Julius Randle. We'll see what happens. If he doesn't end up showing up for that team, then I'm pretty sure they will trade him. So I'm not too worried about that. But I think when they put Lonzo Ball into that situation, I think that really will help solidify them going forward. It puts everybody in their right positions, and it will just make the game easier for most other people. All right, so see not too many more comments, and looks like my memory card is full, so I think I'm going to go ahead and end this particular stream. I will be doing these as often as possible, so yeah, when you guys see that notification, tune in, and there will be more to come. All right, see you next time. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and yeah, see you next time.